Out here today, and let's give a big hand of applause to Fred Malo, who put this together with 350.org. Thanks to all the students who came out here today, but a lot of what I'm here to say is for the adults. The kids have started this fight, and it is our job to finish this fight. As parents, we tell our kids to clean up their mess. This is our mess. We don't tell them to clean up our mess. We clean up our own mess for our children. We stand here today because of a 16-year-old Swedish girl named Greta Thunberg, who 2 years ago left school on a Friday, every Friday, and went to her politicians and to ask them to do something about climate change. We don't have to worry. We shouldn't be worried about climate change. We should be worried about government change. We shouldn't be worried about climate change. We should be worried about what we're going to change. Now, this young girl who's inspired millions of people around the world today to leave their school, to leave their work, and stand up to fight against the oil and gas industry, has said we shouldn't listen to her, we should listen to the science. So let's talk about what the science says, and let's talk about what Greta Thunberg said yesterday to our U.S. Congress. She said, where do we begin? Let's begin with the science. The UN, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said, we have a 67% chance to have the 420 gigatons left, while we use 42 gigatons a year. That means we only have 8.5 years left. That means we only have 8.5 years left. 8.5 years left to stop the Earth from global warming to rise at 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. That's what the scientists say. That means if we don't stop getting off of our addiction to fossil fuels right now, today, not tomorrow, we will surpass that 1.5 degrees Celsius mark in less than 8 years. The Earth the land has already heated up to 2 degrees Celsius. This means that we're on a course by 2100 of heating up to 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. This is not sustainable. What are we to do? We are to act now, and half measures will not avail us any. That means we have to get out into the streets. That means we all have to be activist parents. That means we have to lean on our politicians who are willing to work on incrementalism. I would submit that delaying is denying. I would submit that delaying is denying. That means that a ski resort like Aspen, which is owned by a military-industrial corporation, has to be leaned on. That means that a Governor Polis, who is telling us that a Senate Bill 181 will stop us from fracking, needs to be leaned on. That means that politicians who are taking oil and gas money and telling you they care about climate change has to do something. We have to do something now if we care about our children. This isn't a question about hope or hopelessness. This is a question about action. This is a question about who will stand up now. If Greta Thunberg will stand up, will you stand up today? Will you stand up right now? Will you stand up? Will you stand up and be heard? Will you stand up for Greta? Will you stand up for our children? Will you stand up for our future? Will you act now? Will you fight now? Will you get into the streets and make that boy George, who said his father doesn't believe in climate change? I would submit that we are all flat earthers if we are allowed to have a state called Colorado that has 60,000 frack wells to continue having fossil fuel pulled out of the ground, I would submit now we are all flat earthers if we are not calling our politicians today, doing something today, acting every day to fight for our children's future. This is real. This is now. What Martin Luther King said, act with the urgency of now. Let me hear you make some noise, Carbondale. We live in a town called Carbondale. Do you get the irony? The name should be carbon free. Carbon free. Carbon free. Thank you.
Thank you, Arn.